larger. Everybody's doing it. And society is doing it. Anti-Roman society. It's building upon its past memory. It's a conservative society. What was done in the past is done today. Because it holds us together. Rome was a very conservative society. It's when that is disrupted that things are going to start to get shaky. Okay? Now, part of that conservatism meant that, the father, talk about this, the father was the head of the household, correct? Because you're remembering your family through your father, you're the males. So it's the father that inherited. He had absolute control over his family. He could kill with impunity. His daughters, his wives.
Was that a common thing that happened?
Yeah. Children, if they dishonored, they could. Without. Did it happen a lot? There's some emperors who killed their children because they brought disrepute. It was a card that could be played. So, and it also inspired the military. And this is where it's going to start to become dangerous. There's going to be a few generals, and then they're going to become emperors, who brought this kind of attitude to the military. I am going to obey me, and I have complete. And you owe your allegiance to whom? That's going to be the point. When these generals say to their troops and start to foster this attitude that no longer are you responsible to the greater, most Roman, the state, the republic. You're responsible to me. No longer your loyalties, your patriotic loyalties to the greater state, but your loyalties are to me. That's going to be a very dangerous precedent. It's going to be started right before Caesar, and then Caesar's going to perfect it. It's going to propel him to greatness, and it's going to continue throughout the rest of Roman history. When the military is no longer their allegiance, the soldiers, the common soldiers, their allegiance is no longer to the greater good, which it had been throughout most of Roman history, but to one individual. That's dangerous. That's what we're going to start talking about today. In this country, the military is under the command of the president. The military is under the command, specifically a civilian. This is part of the greatest part of the intention of the American Constitution. The military is under the command of a civilian, okay, to prevent something like this happening. A dictator has to be civilian, and the civilian, the president is elected by supposedly the people. So the military is ultimately responsible to the people. So. Periods, again, of Roman history, real quick. Monarchy, Roman Republic, and then the Principate. Now, the Principate is really when it became an empire. When it was a Principate, there was an emperor. So it began with Augustus, right after Caesar. Now remember, the monarchy was a very bad period in Roman history. So when they had a king, it was hereditary, and to call somebody rex, which means king in Latin, was an insult. And what's going to be labeled against Caesar was he wanted to become king. One of the things that led them to. So the late Republic, as Rome started to and absorb new peoples into its growing, I'm going to say empire, but there's no emperor. as it started to encounter these new people and absorb them, it started to disrupt this conservatism in Roman society. And we saw last week in a little clip from the HBO series Mermail. There was Cato and these guys saying, "Oh no. Caesar's bad. It's going to be a departure from the past. We've got to hold on to our past traditions. Don't let these new people into the empire." This is one of the things that Caesar is going to propose. These new conquests, especially Gaul and parts of Spain, to make them citizens of Rome. A dangerous process, disrupting the tradition. So, I think this is where we stop. So right before Caesar comes to power, say within 100 years, Rome is facing these new challenges posed by these new peoples that it's encountered. And there's a number of social structures, social disorders that come with it. Remember, Rome is a slave society. There's a lot of slaves. Slavery is what's stopping Rome from advancing technologically. And so with a lot of slaves, there's always some sort of number of slave rebellions. Just like in Sparta with the Greeks, the slaves rose up. Well, there's a slave uprising, Spartacus. There's a slave, and he brings all these other slaves together. 73 to 71 BCE. His insurrection is eventually put down. He's killed down at Mount Vesuvius. He and his band of slaves. But this heightened the awareness of the empire, or Rome itself, to be sliced apart from within. I mean, these guys are not fighting at the gates. They're from within. There's these slave populations from within. It challenged, in many ways, Rome's thinking of its invincibility at this time. We're standing with this large, massive empire, but yet it could be brought down from within. And the revolt was rather successful for a long period of time. So the other struggle from the late Republic are these guys, Gracchus, Tiberius Gracchus and his brother Gaius Gracchus. They're challenging the old order, whereas the old order was aristocracy. They're challenging it in that they're trying to give the plebeians, the common people, the greater say in the government. And they're doing it by giving soldiers and common people more land. They're proposing to take land, especially Tiberius, take land away from wealthy landowners who have massive farms, and split these farms up, giving the land to the poor people and to common soldiers. And for that, Tiberius Gracchus is going to be murdered. This is an indication of the degree to which the Senate and this aristocracy is willing to go to preserve its privileges. Surely, certainly the plebeians, the common people, have a say in the government, but they're proposing a much larger say. So Tiberius brother Gaius enacted laws for the less privileged, stabilized the price of grain in Rome. They've taken away the free print. Now you're supposed to buy it, but at a very, very, very low price. He's going to suggest full citizenship to Italian allies, and that means these other groups on the Italian peninsula, on that boot. He's going to say, we're going to give full citizenship to all these little groups. And he too is going to be murdered. You're seeing a trend here. So, if you challenge this establishment, this old order, you're up to date. So both these guys were liberals. Here's going to be Sulla. Yes. And see, this the other. They're from the wealthy class. So the wealthy individuals pandering to the lower classes. And they wouldn't actually preserve their political power. So this aristocratic reaction to these two guys. They're going from very liberal consuls, then they're going to go to very conservative. Marius, he's going to be elected consul in 107 BCE. He's going to be re-elected 6 times because he's appealing to the traditions of Rome. He's going to abolish property classifications for the army. No longer are you going to have to hold property to be in the army. And he's going to also give more land to the soldiers in the army as a tribute. So he's going to be very popular. The army becomes more loyal to him than to the republic. And this is the danger that I'm saying. When these soldiers, when these generals, when he's a general, when these generals start to give, they're elected by the people to be consuls, and then they turn around and they start giving land and benefits and money and all these other things to the soldiers, their power base quickly becomes the army. And then that's when the army becomes more loyal to that general than to the republic. Following him is Sulla. Sulla is going to be appointed a dictator. He too is going to promote a lot of aristocratic values and also position himself for his own power. But now he's going to become a dictator. The Senate appoints him dictator, but he's going to resign after 3 years. Voluntarily gives up power. What's that? Why? Because in Rome it was always a tradition. I mean, going back to Cincinnatus. Cincinnatus was appointed by Rome by the Senate as a dictator, and usually it was for a period of 5 to 10 years. And then he voluntarily gave up power. He didn't say, okay, now that I'm in power, I'm going to make me dictator for life, which is what Caesar's going to try. Caesar's going to do. So Sulla voluntarily gave up power. This is something that George Washington did. As I said, Washington could have stayed in power if he wanted to, but after 2 terms, there was the precedent for all presidents to follow, except for Franklin Roosevelt. So after 2 terms, presidents said, I'm done. Voluntarily gave up power. But Sulla is a conservative, very conservative, and he's going to strengthen the power of the Senate, and therefore the wealthy over Rome and its empire. So along comes Caesar. And Pompey. Both Pompey and Caesar are going to champion, or say they're going to champion the cause of the common people. This is a refreshing refrain from the previous 2 guys. Pompey's elected to the Senate. Pompey's a general. He's the one who won for Palestine, present-day Israel. He's the one who conquered that area. So he's a very accomplished general. And so is Julius Caesar, also a very accomplished general, as we all know. So Pompey elected to the Senate in 52 BC, and he and Caesar and this other guy, Gaius Pompus Magnus, they're going to form what is called the First Triumvirate, ruled by 3. They're each going to be a consul, elected consuls in Rome. And theoretically rule equally. Well, the only one that was in Rome, physically in Rome, was Pompey, which we saw last week on that clip from the series Rome. He's there, and then Julius Caesar's out fighting Gaius Pompus Magnus, he was killed in battle. So Caesar crosses the Rubicon into Rome. It's just the two of them, Pompey and Gaius Julius Caesar. Now, Caesar had been winning. He had been fighting in Gaul. He had made all these enormous conquests for Rome. A lot of booty. He had sent back money to the treasury. He was paying off citizens to get elected, to get his associate, his assistant general, elected to the Senate. So he had his man in the Senate, keep an eye on what's going on. Giving them all sorts of tributes, paying off the debts of the Roman Senate. So he's laying the groundwork in many respects, the political groundwork for his maneuvering to become what? The sole consul and then emperor, or dictator and then emperor. He has an agenda. So Pompey was somewhat popular with the people. After all, he was the guy physically in Rome, so he had to be popular, otherwise they'd come up. But it's going to be Caesar who's really pandering to the common people. So in 49 BC, he's going to cross the Rubicon River, which, as I'll show you here and as I'll talk about, Rubicon is the entrance to Italy. And the Senate had told him, do not cross the Rubicon with your soldiers. And he did. And then he entered into Rome proper with soldiers. I mean, he did not enter Rome with your soldiers who were armed. You could come into Rome with soldiers, but they had to leave their weapons outside the city. It's one of these Roman traditions. He's crossing the Rubicon, disobeying the Senate. Pompey knows this. Pompey has himself elected sole consul. And then when he is elected sole consul, he declares Caesar an enemy of the state. And that's when they say, do not cross the Rubicon, or he disobeys that. Caesar sees this as him being robbed of his rightful claim to the consulship. And this is one of the things that's propelling Caesar to do what he's going to do. Pompey knows, finds out that Caesar is crossed the Rubicon. Pompey gets very worried. Now remember, Pompey is a general. He's a very seasoned general. And the senators who support him are saying, all right, we've got to confront Caesar. He's crossed the Rubicon. He's headed to Rome. He's 2 days' march from Rome. Where are your legions? And Pompey's saying, I have legions. And they're saying, well, you better get them here because this man's coming with just one legion of 5,000 men. Legion's 5,000 men. He said, where are they? And Pompey is saying to the senators, I have them, don't worry. And then they find out that, well, you might be able to muster these legions, but that's going to take 4 days. Caesar's only 2 days away. So Pompey says, okay, let's flee. It's going to be an organized retreat from the city. We're not capitulating, we're not giving up, we're just kind of retreating. And by spring, by the summer, we'll be defeated Caesar. And the Roman people, are never going to sit for this man, Caesar, coming in, disobeying the Senate, first of all. Remember, we have tradition. We hold on to this. They're not going to sit for this man crossing the Rubicon, entering Rome with an army. It's never been done. So that's what he's banking on. Pompey is also banking on the Roman citizens rising up against Caesar. But what did Caesar do? He had already what? Given them money and all this money. So the citizens don't rise up. Pompey's now on the run. The treasury, he had thought, well, we're going to bring the treasury with us. We're going to bring the money with us. No, that was intercepted. That was stopped. Caesar got that. So Pompey, here he is. Senators following him, his wife, this entourage marching out of Rome. They have no money to pay these legions. And it's becoming obvious that Pompey really doesn't have as many men as he thought he would. He kind of knew this happened. He dropped the ball. So now Caesar's going to march into Rome on the auspices that Pompey robbed him of his rights, and that you, the citizens of Rome, should not be looking towards me as violating tradition, but more towards Pompey.
Any of your people I can mention?
Titus.
Did I show you this one last week?
Yes.
I did? You sure?
We did.
Yes,
Soldiers!
Yeah.
Pompey and the Senate have formally declared that Gaius Julius Caesar is an enemy of Rome. They have declared that I am a criminal. They have declared, in effect, that all of you also are criminals. Tribune's veto was not exercised. People's Tribune Mark Antony and 50 men of the 13th were assaulted by 1,000 head of Pompeian scum. A tribune of the plebs assaulted on the steps
Now he's
of
talking about
the
Mark
Senate
Antony.
House. Can you imagine a more terrible sacrilege?
This is all
Our
set up.
beloved republic is in the hands of madmen. This is a dark day, and I stand as a fork in the road. I can abide the law and surrender my arms to the Senate and watch the republic fall to tyranny and chaos. Or I can go home with my sword in my hand and run those maniacs to the Champion Rock. Legionary Titus, pull off, step forward.
That's Mark Antony.
Titus, pull up.
Remember, he was elected, all these people to elect him to be a tribune of the plebs, of the common people.
And 50 brave men of the 13th fought Pompey's 1,000 in the Forum and saved the Tribune. There was legionary Titus Pullo drew first blood. Here's 500 denarii. Very grateful, sir. Are you with me, Titus Pullo? Will you come with me to Rome? Yes. Yes, sir. Certainly. Titus Pullo is with me. And you? Are you with me?
Caesar was a very charismatic, as you can see here, general. He was a very charismatic person in general. And people loved him. Obviously, he was buying him off, despite the fact that he did not really have the best interest of the empire or the republic at hand. He's going to catch up to Pompey at Priscillius, and he's going to kill him. Well, no, he's not going to kill him. He's going to defeat his forces. Pompey's going to flee. He's going to flee to Egypt, Alexandria, Egypt, where Cleopatra's brother is 13 years old. He was competing. He's fighting his sister to be pharaoh. He captures Pompey and has his head chopped off. And when Caesar, who's in hot pursuit of Pompey, gets to Egypt and meets this boy pharaoh, 13 years old, the kid presents Caesar with Pompey's head. Well, what was Caesar's reaction? One of thank you very much, or anger? It was anger. He said, you killed, no matter what, this man was my enemy, was my rival, but he was still a friend, and above all, he was a consul of Rome. You don't kill a consul of Rome. So that set in motion Caesar's fighting a civil war. So Caesar befriends Cleopatra, he finances her army, he essentially puts her on the throne. Her brother dies, he drowns, I think, in the Nile when he's fleeing. But Caesar puts Cleopatra on the throne. And he also begins this relationship with Cleopatra, because not long after his entry into Egypt, she has a son, attributed to Caesar, Caesarion, little Caesar. And that will become a rival of Augustus, which we'll talk about shortly. But this also precipitates Rome's conquest of Egypt. Because now, with these inroads into Egypt, Caesar and Cleopatra, and then Antony and Cleopatra, it's going to give Augustus, Caesar's successor, cause and reason to go in and just take over Egypt. Egypt is going to become a colony or a state or a province of Rome for the first time in 1,500 years. Egypt will no longer be ruled by a pharaoh, and that will be the end of the pharaohs. Cleopatra will be the last pharaoh of Egypt. And then after that, it will be a state, province of Rome. So this is this drama that's going to start with Caesar. He's going to give free grain to the people. So many of the veterans of his army onto land in Italy. He's going to encourage them to marry the local population. He's going to reform the calendar. He's going to add another month. He's going to increase the calendar every year. Every 4 years, we're going to have that leap year. His successor is going to name the month of July. Julius Caesar. And then August is going to be named after Augustus, his successor, August. So, originally there's only 10 months to the year. We're going to have these 3 months. December was 10th month, was the last month. December, Deca means 10. So December was the 10th month. And it is the what? It's the last month of the year, but it's usually the 10th month was the last month of the year. It's still named Deca in December. March was named because that's when people marched out. That was the beginning of So the structure of the social structure of the late Republic, Cleopatra in Egypt, as I just said, and I'm going to show you another video here real quickly. Caesar met her, had a relationship with her. He brought her, she came to Rome in this grand entrance. She came to Rome with Caesarion at her side, which only upset the Roman people because they thought, well, this woman, this child, who's half Egyptian, could, one day become the emperor. And we're not going to be ruled by an Egyptian. So here's Caesar declaring himself